Hello and welcome to the introduction lecture for the summer session of MBA 501 and Accounting 200. So for the next little bit, it won't be a full hour here, I'll give you an introduction for myself, a little bit about my professional background so you know what I bring to the class when I teach it. Of course, we won't be going around the room and introducing ourselves to each other in this format. I'll also talk a bit about my teaching strategy for this course, and then we'll kind of go over the syllabus, what's expected of you over the course of the next 6 weeks. So again, this is what we won't do. If we were in class in person, I'd ask each of you to say your name, what your past business experience has been, the area of concentration either within your undergraduate degree or your MBA, what your goal is for the class, what you're hoping to achieve, and then what your career goal is. But of course, in this format, we can't do that. So my background is a little bit strange. When I was 15, I got a job at this company, Big Toys, that made public playground equipment. And I actually installed playgrounds in that exact park in Tacoma. The first summer I worked there, the summer after ninth grade, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was a wonderful company to work for. It was a really positive product, something that benefited children, and it kind of got in my blood. I worked there throughout high school. I went to community college, to TCC, and I continued working there when I was in community college. And then I transferred to University of Washington, where I got a degree in business administration with a concentration in accounting. I passed the CPA exam and became the controller for this manufacturing company. It was based in Tacoma at the time. I worked for them for a number of years in that position, was also in charge of production for the company. And then the company was purchased by a much larger company. Big Toys at this time was about $8 million a year in sales, and we were purchased by a Danish company called Compan that was about $200 million a year in sales. Here's an example of one of their playgrounds up at the Seattle Center. So for Compan, it was working for them. I worked for them for 12 years. It was very much an extension of my education in many ways. So where Big Toys had been a relatively small company, about 50 employees, working primarily in North America, working for a global publicly traded company. So their Compan shares were traded on the Copenhagen Stock Exchange. So I got experience in working for a large public company. I got experience working for an international company and doing business all around the world. And I got experience working in a company with a variety of subsidiaries. So we did business with other units of the company, and I got experience in that regard. So I learned a tremendous amount. My job for Compan was overseeing the financial aspects and the production and operations requirements for all of their companies in North America. They own 5 companies. So I traveled quite a bit, a job with a lot of moving parts, really, really enjoyed it quite a bit. And then in mid 2003, the management of Compan approached me and had decided that they wanted to sell the Big Toys product line, and they wanted to know if I would be interested in purchasing it. So my wife and I talked about it, and we made the leap. I had just turned 40, if I remember correctly, and we made the leap, and I quit my job, resigned, and we borrowed what we could on credit cards and a line of credit on our home and signed a very large promissory note and purchased Big Toys, the playground manufacturing company. And went out and hired people that I'd worked with in the past to work for me. And we did that at the beginning of 2004. So during that first year of my ownership, we made a huge change in the company. So Big Toys had always made wooden playground equipment, which you see in the background here. We did a very good job of that. It was really well made, beautiful equipment, and we liked giving children a connection to natural materials. But we found that there were many customers that refused to buy wooden playgrounds because of vandalism, kids burning them down, splinters, whole variety of issues. So, under my ownership, our first year, we launched a new version of Big Toys, which was a different material choice. So the structure in the foreground there is made out of, all the steel is made from reclaimed steel, so crushed cars, that sort of thing. And then all of the lumber that you see, the platforms, the enclosures, the roof, all of those components were made from recycled milk jugs. So it had a very, very high recycled content, post-consumer recycled content. But the product looked the same, and the play activities like the slide you see there, they were interchangeable, all of that. So that helped for practical reasons. This turned out to be a very successful thing to do. There were no other playground companies that had kind of staked out the green position in our industry, so we had that to ourselves. And we could offer customers a choice between recycled or sustainable. It worked out very, very well. So the company at that time was a little over 30 years old. And it had been stagnating and actually declining in sales during Compan's ownership. And largely through the introduction of this new product choice or material choice for customers, we were able to double the company's sales in the first 4 years of my ownership. So that was a pretty positive thing. I ended up selling the company during the Great Recession. That recession really impacted public spending in a significant way. Most of our customers were municipalities and counties and so forth, where they put these in their parks, and they faced severe budget constraints. And in a 2-year period, the entire playground industry contracted by 40%. That was a pretty difficult environment within which to do business. So I reluctantly sold my company to my largest competitor, worked for them for a year, and decided that was something I didn't really enjoy a whole lot. Didn't agree with the decisions they made, that sort of thing. So I left at the end of that year, went back to school, got my MBA, and I have been teaching since, both at South Puget Sound Community College, at University of Washington, and at St. Martin's University. The other thing I've done in the last 10 years is I've been on the board of the Hands-On Children's Museum here in Olympia. So I joined that board for a couple of reasons, and you can see some Big Toys product there in their farmers market. I had had a connection with them just through donating materials and that sort of thing, so I liked the people that were running the organization quite a bit. I really liked their mission, so allowing children to learn through play, that was very much what the mission at Big Toys was. So it's been a great organization to be connected to. I also realized that I would be teaching students that would want to work at a not-for-profit, and I didn't have any experience in that regard. So I've been on the finance committee for the board, and I've overseen their budgets and their financial statements for the last 10 years, and so it gave me a much better understanding of how not-for-profits function and how in many ways they're very similar to for-profit organizations. So that's what I've been doing. So my contact information, best way to reach me is by email. I check it frequently, so I'll get back to you quickly. I'm happy to Zoom with you at any time, so just send me an email and we can get together in that way. And then I've got my cell phone number there. I would ask, because your names and phone numbers are not in my phone, to identify yourself when you send me a text message, but texting is fine as well. So a little bit about the teaching strategy. So I'm not a big believer in 4-hour classes at night. Most of you work during the day. I worked full time when I was in college and took classes at night, so I know what that's about. And I don't think a whole lot of learning goes on during that 3rd and 4th hour in the evening when you've been at work all day. So what I do instead is take some people call it a flipped classroom, other hybrid or blended classroom. So what I do instead is record lectures like this, so voice over PowerPoint, That way you can watch them when it works in your schedule. And in those video lectures, I explain concepts both in terms of how something is done from an accounting perspective, and also why it's done. I think it's easier for you to understand something if you know kind of the why behind it. So what I'll have you do each week is watch those videos. First, read the book first, then watch the video, which will give you a better understanding of what you've read. And then on Wednesdays, we will do in-class practice. So our time together, we'll meet usually about 2 hours on Wednesday evening, and we'll spend that entire time working on problems together. Where I'll kind of set the problem up. I'll give you worksheets to use. You'll work through the problem, then I'll go over the solution. We'll talk about it, that sort of thing. So that's how we'll spend our in-person time together. If you want a little more practice, I'll post in Connect algorithmic practices. So each time you take them, it's different numbers and names and so forth for extra practice. And then you'll have a homework assignment that's due by Sunday night, working similar problems in McGraw-Hill's Connect platform, where you'll also find the ebook. For those of you that are taking the class as Accounting 200, so the content is the same, but the goal for the class is a little bit different. So for MBA 501 students, my goal is to acquaint you with enough of accounting that you can be successful in other classes in your MBA program that touch and require knowledge of accounting. For Accounting 200 students, I'm trying to lay a foundation that will give you a solid basis for moving on in your accounting education. So the goals are a little bit different, and some of you are Accounting 200 students and some of you are MBA 501 students. So for the most part, you'll get the same context, the same homework, all of that. But the one difference is that Accounting 200 students will take a final exam at the end of the semester. So, and I'll get with you on the details for that as the session goes forward. So a little bit about big picture, what is accounting and so forth. So accounting is really the process of capturing all of the transactions that occur in a business. So even a very small business like a food truck or something like that could have hundreds and hundreds of transactions every day, selling something, collecting money from people, paying workers to make products, buying raw materials, incurring overhead like cell phone bills and maintenance on the vehicle and gas and all of those things. So even a small business is going to have hundreds or maybe even thousands of transactions every day. And so accounting is capturing all those transactions, not letting them just slip by unrecorded, capturing all those transactions and then organizing that data in a way that tells a coherent story about what happened in a particular business over a period of time. The purpose of that story is so that people that hear it understand what happened in the business so that they can make good decisions going forward. They can decide, when do we need to raise prices? When do we need to advertise more? Can I afford to give my employees a bonus? Do I need to lay somebody off? Those sorts of things. So that's the story of how a business did, and you tell it in enough detail that you can make good decisions going forward. Businesses that make good decisions thrive and expand and provide opportunities for people. Businesses that make bad decisions usually have the opposite impact. They do poorly, they lay people off, and they eventually go out of business. So why study accounting? Well, some of you are going to find the subject fascinating and you may want to be an accountant. That's certainly a possibility for many students. It's a field in which there is currently a shortage of accountants, and so it's fairly easy to find a job. And the jobs can be very financially rewarding and intellectually rewarding as well. Those of you that don't necessarily want to go into accounting, maybe you want to be a purchasing manager, a production manager, a marketing manager, a human resources manager, all of those fields need to understand accounting because that's how the business is judged. That's how banks determine, should we loan that business money? That's how investors decide, should I put more money into the company or take my money out? all of those things are judged by accounting. So it's important for you to understand how your activities are reflected in the accounting reports of the overall company and the effect of the decisions you make on those accounting reports, because it's also how you'll be judged. So that's why it's important for all of you, for different reasons, to understand accounting. So I really look forward to working with you during this upcoming 6 weeks, and this is the only class I'm teaching, so I am very available to your questions, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you.